Thanks very much, Evine, and thank you all for being here and making it back after lunch. It's always a bit of a struggle, but it's a privilege to be here, and I mean that very sincerely. I give talks at different times to different people, but I think this is probably one of the more important groups I've ever spoken to, and I take that very seriously, and I think the work that you're doing and will do is really, really important. So what I wanted to do for the next 15 minutes is kind of give you maybe some inspiration and some ideas and some very concrete case studies. I don't claim to be an expert, absolutely not, but I'm a good listener, I'm told, and I think that goes a lot to explaining the work that we do in Clare, and the work that we do there in Clare and Galway. It's not just my work, there's a lot of people involved, but I wanted to tell you the story of the Burren and the success we've had with farming and biodiversity in that area over the last 25 years, not even 20. So I wanted to talk specifically about the farming community, you know, in a positive sense, in terms of what farmers can actually do in the form of being a solution rather than the problem to this biodiversity crisis that we have. And I completely believe that. I'm not being insincere, I'm being absolutely real when I think farmers have the keys to unlocking the solutions to this biodiversity crisis that we have. And if we can mobilise those farmers at scale, we can do anything. So this is a little case study of what we've been doing in Clare. The Burren, a beautiful part. You have to come. In 2 weeks' time, we've got our big Winterage Festival, so please do come along. It's full of biodiversity, plants from the Arctic, the Alpine region, from the Mediterranean region, full of orchids, riddled with the most wonderful insects that you'll ever imagine, the most incredible creatures, and I think Lynn would appreciate them if she ever did come over to see us. But at the very heart of the Burren, the lifeblood of the Burren, are the people and their farming practices. And we often forget that when you read books about the Burren, read about the archaeology and the geology and the flora and the fauna, but actually we don't hear much about the people. And people have farmed in the Burren, like this man here, Pat Nagle. His ancestors have been farming here for hundreds and thousands of years. The oldest structure built by farmers in Ireland is in the background. Paul na Brone, built 6,000 years ago by farmers in this landscape. And I just wanted to explain something very simply. Farming has a huge impact on our landscape, as we know. So if you take a typical little section of a field in the Burren, this is farmed, this is grazed during wintertime, in fact, in the Burren. If you have too much farming, and you improve the land and fertilise it, maybe reseed it, you do lose a lot of your biodiversity. And farmers do that in order to increase production and meet the marketplace. That in turn can lead to visual pollution and damage to our soil and our water. We know that. Probably what we don't recognise as much is too little farming can result in loss of biodiversity as well. And in the Burren, you get very rapid scrub encroachment and damage to your archaeology and an increased risk of fire. So we are trying, my team and I, to maintain the balance between farming and the landscape in order to produce the most of what we call ecosystem services, great food from a great environment. So how do we do that? Well, we like to think like a farmer. We like to get inside the farmers' minds and to think what influences them. This is an amazing farm leader, and I think leadership has a big role to play in this biodiversity crisis. Michael Davran. So Michael, as well as producing great livestock, for many generations, we're now asking Michael to produce biodiversity, cultural heritage, clean water, healthy soils. You know, that's the future for him. That's what we'd like him to do. But what does Michael think about that? And sometimes very critical of farmers for damaging the environment, without actually understanding why they do what they do. And I think we've been trying to get inside the minds of these people. So first of all, farming is a business. Is this farming for nature going to cost me? And if so, who's going to pay? And how long am I going to get paid for? Secondly, I have an advisor for beef, I have an advisor for dairy, but who advises me on farming for biodiversity? Where do I get that information in a way that's relevant to my farm? Because everywhere is different. The Burren is different from Wicklow, it's different from Connemara. How do I farm for nature? And really importantly, and we haven't talked about this so far, I think, is what will my neighbours think of me? If I go down this green route, am I going to be accused of being a hippie or something? This is risky business. I want to be sure before I step forward here. What will other people think of me? What will my peers think? You're asking me to do a lot here, and I need comfort. So we've been trying to answer those questions and give farmers reassurance over the past 20 years. Very briefly, on the payments, we believe that farmers produce potentially not just good food, but a good environment. If farmers aren't producing good environmental outcomes, I don't think they should be paid environmental subsidies or payments. But if they are, by God, I think they should be paid plenty, way more than they're being paid at the moment. So in the Burren, we piloted a system about 15 years ago of where we score every field on the farm out of 10. And the more biodiversity, the better soil, the better water quality, the more money you get. And farmers responded to that really immediately, pretty much, and very easily, because we said to them, it's like bringing your animal to the mart. When you bring your animal to the mart, the better the condition of the animal, the more money you get. Well, it's the same with your environment. The better condition, the more money. And then they're figuring out, right, well, how do I do this? This is interesting. This is an incentive. So for about $1 million a year, we pay Burren farmers to manage this vast, hugely important global landscape. That's a bargain. It's a huge bargain. And the beauty of it is we never tell the farmers what to do. We say, this is what we want, and when you produce it, we'll give you funding, we'll give you payment. We're guaranteed for the next 5 years. We hope to guarantee for 20, but at the moment it's 5. So we're giving them an incentive. We're translating money into outcomes on behalf of the taxpayer. In many cases, it's a case of addressing issues for farmers. So we also give them funding to address point source pollution, for instance. If a farmer wants to do that, we'll give him some funding, and that'll help increase his environmental payment. If he wants to improve access or repair walls in order to, target grazing a little bit better, we'll fund them for that. Or if he wants to remove invasive species, we'll give him funding for that. So this is creating new roles for farmers as basically conservators of a farmed environment. So not just to producing food and getting paid for the outcomes, they're also getting paid to address environmental issues at farm level. It wouldn't pay them to do this otherwise. This is why we're having to support this. But there is an appetite. And again, we never tell the farmers what to do, because for farmers, a big reason for being a farmer is that nobody tells me what to do. I can decide what I want to do when I get up in the morning. So that's really important to us as well. So it reduces, we often talk to farmers as well, a lot of them are really concerned about, I just want to leave my farm in better condition for the next generation. And we, hand on heart, believe that this will do that. And that's very reassuring to those farmers. Helps to reduce input costs and improve the condition for future generations. And that's the payment part of how we pay farmers. Very simple, very effective. Secondly, when there's an incentive, you're going to want to get it. So you're going to want the information as to how you can farm in a way that will deliver these outcomes. So right in the heart of the Burren, between the school and the church, we have a little office. And that's open 5 days a week, 52 weeks of the year, to farmers who want to learn more or ask questions about farming for nature. But not only that, it deals with the Department of Ag. If a farmer has a problem with his paperwork, we'll sort it out. In a landscape like the Burren, you need permission to get out of bed in the morning. Everything requires permission. So we help the farmer with the permissions. We've created a bureaucratic, free system for the farmers. So instead of a farm plan that looks like a telephone directory, we'll give them a one-page plan with a picture of their farm and a picture of what they're getting paid for on the other side of it. So taking a farmer-centered approach. Farmers don't like paperwork. They want to get on with the farming, and we enable them to do that. And it works very well. So this is the only slide I'll show you. This is a slide of 15 years worth of, or 12 years worth of working with farmers in the Burren to improve environmental outcomes. The one thing you'll notice about this graph is it's heading towards the ceiling. And this captures the environmental health of the Burren, and it's improving year on year by virtue of paying farmers for these environmental results and also supporting them with good information and advice as to how to do so. So it can be done. This is an external evaluation which also put a price on that improvement in biodiversity. So nature can pay, not just what the farmers get paid, but the benefits to the taxpayer, to society, have been put at the region of 33 million euros worth since 2010. So it can pay, generating environmental outcomes as well as economic outcomes for farmers. Now, that's the Burren programme, so there's loads more information on it, but I just wanted to show you what's possible at a significant landscape scale over a significant period of time. We can work with farmers to improve biodiversity and environmental outcomes. But the third piece, which really fascinates me, this is Oliver Nagel and his family. Amazing Burren farmers. I just think these guys are phenomenal. Oliver and his father, Pat, are a tonic. They love their place, they love their farm, they love their livestock, they love the Burren, and they love the whole story of the Burren. And on that farm, every field score is 10 out of 10. In other words, the farmer is delivering as much as he possibly can on that farm. Now, he's cleaned up all the water supplies and created new habitats for freshwater invertebrates. He's put these beautiful Burren gates in and repaired hundreds and hundreds of meters of stone walls, which have been there for hundreds of years. And he's produced biodiversity that's fit literally for a king. This is King Charles when he visited the Burren, and this farm he wanted to see when he came to Ireland. That farmer's doing something right. Now, of all the farmers, he's getting the same opportunities for income and support. But why is he doing it so much better than everybody else? That question fascinates me, and I think for me it's all about the heart. So when we want farmers to farm for biodiversity, it's about the pocket, the business, the head, the advice and the support, but also about the heart. Any of us, when we go to work, want to believe in what we do, that it's important, that it's something that's worth doing. And Oliver and Pat certainly believe that. They have a strong connection with their farm and with the archaeology and the biodiversity on that farm, and they're hugely proud. So a little organisation called the Burren Bio Trust has been working on this for about 20 years. So the first thing we did is we published a book with Teagasc's support about farming and the burn. And this is giving farmers ownership of the landscape, which had been kind of taken from them by all the experts. So we gave them back their story, and they felt they were now part of the story and part of the solution. We have been running training courses, education courses in local schools. All these landscapes, as was pointed out this morning, have been designated, but nobody's really told people why these places are globally important. So we run courses, about 10-week courses in the local schools, and after 10 weeks, the local kids graduate as burn experts. Now, these are farmers' sons and daughters, and they're as proud as punch to be burn experts. And from the point of view of Pest Power alone, it's a phenomenal program. It's graduated about 3,000 kids over the last 20 years, all through charity. And we've expanded that through the Heritage Keepers program with the Heritage Council. We have a volunteer corps who go out doing archaeological digs, so you can, as a farmer or as a resident of the burn, you can get your hands dirty and dig into the burn, literally, and learn about it. We have something called Tea Talks. Right through the winter in Tubber Hall, we put on a cup of tea and invite the community in, farmers and other people in the community, and we have a talk about butterflies or gentians or orchids or something like that. It's a way of going into the community space and engaging those people with their amazing natural surroundings. Every month for the last 12 years, we've had a walk, usually led by a farmer. So picture this, a farmer taking a group of general public out onto his land, telling them about his farming system, about what he did as part of the programme, about that little flower there. He's not quite sure the name of it, that monument. And the public love it because it's authentic. But the empowerment for the farmer is phenomenal because now he's not just a food producer, he's doing something that people really love and value. And that's been a really positive experience for us and can be replicated in any farmed landscape anywhere in Ireland or anywhere in the world. And what we're very proud of is our Winters Festival. So every year we invite a farmer, and this particular year was Aoife Ford, an amazing young female farmer and an early graduate of our Burn Experts programme. And Aoife took the public up to see her farm one day 2 years ago, just before COVID actually. And she said, come on, let's all be farmers for a day. So she took them up the mountain, and if you follow the cattle down, and the people going back, all the way to about 1,000 people went with Aoife that year. It's very labour-intensive, farming in the west of Ireland. I'm joking. But it's a great way of highlighting the fact that farming isn't just about food production. Farming is about our culture, our identity. It's about our landscapes, our biodiversity, and that should be celebrated. So we even had the priest bless the cattle. And the farmer said, should they all have twins when they're up there? And I just wanted to finish off then with 2 quick slides. Just about the fact that the Burren is a great exemplar of how farming can work to improve our biodiversity and our cultural heritage and our landscape. And it's a real success story, and it's got a lot of credit thanks to the hard work and the determination of a lot of people. But from working with farmers in the Burren, we really believe that there's great farmers, not just in the Burren, but right across Ireland. And we need to identify, celebrate, and support those farmers. So we set up something with Board Bia's help a few years ago called Farming for Nature. We identified people from tillage to dairy to beef to sheep who are actually farming in a way that enhances their local farmed environment. So these are the type of people who, day in, day out, while we're here having nice lunches, are out there on the hills and out there on the fields farming for nature and for biodiversity. These genuinely are my conservation heroes. They do it day in, day out. They're phenomenal. And the reason we wanted to celebrate them was we need new voices in farming. We need people who are on the ground, who are humble, who speak from experience, and who other farmers respect. So we need new voices. When you're talking to a farmer about biodiversity, it's not as effective if you're a politician or if you're a scientist. If you're another farmer speaking to your neighbour about what you did for biodiversity, that has so much more credibility. So these ambassadors, we harvest their knowledge through videos, through farm walks, through podcasts, through little questions and answer sessions, through online fora, through best practice guidelines. Speaking to the point earlier this morning about where do you get the information, I think the best source is from other farmers. So we're trying to harvest the information from these farmers and share it. But genuinely, it's a fantastic resource. And if you want an insight into farming for nature and how it can really work, These are super farmers. They're not hobby farmers, they're real farmers with a good business acumen, but a real love for nature and for place. And the second story I wanted to tell you was about the appetite for action. One thing I've often found working with farmers is that the talk and the reports and all, that's all grand, but just can we get on with it? Can we please just get on with it? There's a real appetite for doing things. So we tested this about 2 years ago with a little project called the Hare's Corner. Now, the Hare's Corner is an expression reflecting that piece of the field where the heavy machinery could never get into, and it's kind of, maybe it's too wet or too rough or too difficult to corner, and so it is left to nature. So we borrowed that phrase, and with funding from the Department of Ag and from Clare County Council, we launched a little initiative called the Hare's Corner. And we said to people in County Clare that, look, if you want to put in a little pond or a little woodland or a little orchard, we'll give you some funding and some advice on how to do so. And within 6 months, we had 43 orchards sourced from Seed Savers, that amazing Clare charity, planted. We had 32 ponds right across the county. We had 38 of these woodlands with these rare burren pines in them. And that was just the tip of the iceberg. People are hungry to do something. People do care. It's not just farmers, it's also landowners. So I think give them the opportunity. I think a lot of people are nervous about doing the right thing. It's hard to know what to do the right thing anymore between biodiversity and climate and water and all these other concerns and food. So give them the opportunity and they won't disappoint. And we'd love to see that programme expanded north and south in future years. So finally, and I see my light has gone amber, this is Philomena Hines, another great biodiversity hero of mine who farmed the most wonderful 100-hectare farm in the Burn and loved her place. And this is Fergal Smith and Paddy Healy, other people. So in conclusion, I really, really believe that farmers have a crucial role to play in reversing biodiversity loss. The big question is, like, we've got a biodiversity crisis, we need to move at scale immediately. And I think farmers are capable of doing that. But how do we mobilize them at scale? I think there's great examples all over the country as to how we do it. You know, it's not rocket science. We know how to do it. We know from the Burren and programs like the Hare's Corner that, you know, there's a good appetite to do this amongst farmers. We've seen in the Burren as well that taking this approach of recognizing the pocket, the head and the heart, that you can really deliver for nature and for people. So I think we know what to do it. Burren program, Farm for Nature, Hare's Corner, show that it can be done. This is the kicker here, with sufficient determination and innovation and creativity. We need to be determined. So when I was reflecting on this, I was saying to Avian before, over the past week about what I'd say today, I kept coming back to the same thing is, when we talk about how do we reverse biodiversity loss, the real question is how badly we want to. If we want to, we can. Simple as, but do we have enough determination? Do we have enough imagination? Do we have enough creativity? Because if we do, there's no reason why it can't be done. Thank you very much.